Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's show, the very first show in October. Awesome. Excuse me, it means we're 10 months into 2020. What a year it has been. After an auspicious start, it's kind of gone relatively rapidly downhill, and it looks like remaining in a downhill trend for at least a wee while. So I guess we're all going to have to get used to it, and I've forgotten to put my phone on silent, so I should do that now before it starts beeping, because that's what happens when I don't put my phone on silent. So, good evening. Hope everybody is doing well. Good morning if you are in this side of the Atlantic. If you're in the east and further east of me, then good morning to you. And in some places like Australia, it's probably lunchtime. So if you are watching in Australia or New Zealand, hope you're having a great day, and a very good evening to you guys over in the United States of America and Canada and places like that. So we have quite a lot of activity in the chat already, and tonight is just a Q&A show because I like doing Q&A shows, and you guys ask some of the best questions on the planet. And so I'm really looking forward to what you guys have to say and what you guys want to talk about, or what you guys want me to show you in Studio One. We can certainly take a wee look at Studio One at some point if that's what you guys want to do. We can talk about music theory, we can talk about harmony, we can talk about composing, we can talk about songwriting and lyrics and storytelling. We can talk about notation, we can talk about transposing instruments, we can talk about all sorts of stuff. Whatever is on your heart as it relates to music and music making and Personas products in general. Gonna click remind me later. It's a piece of software that's desperately nagging me to update, and I keep going, I'll do it later. Story of my life, really. I kind of do that with Windows updates as well, because I go, well, then do it later. And then, of course, it runs out of, and you have to actually just do it. So, anyway, enough rambling from me. Let's see who was first in. I think it was John Lake, who was very, very early tonight. He was like a whole 47 minutes early, which is super impressive. And he goes, oops, a little early, but hi anyway, which is awesome. And then Thomas over in the Philippines is here. Lily, the piano player, is here. She says, hi, I'm so happy to get done with my live in time to watch this. Awesome. I'm glad you're here, Lily. Let's see. And of course, my good friend, PLM is what I'm going to call him from now on. Photography, Light and Magic over in Glasgow. My fellow compatriot is here, and we have Vahe Manakuin, who says cello, and to you I'm going to say viola. Dwayne is here as well, Kyle, and of course Drummer Mike, one of my faithful moderators, is here, and he says, please remember to put at Jonny Lipsham Studios if you want to ask a question, so that I don't miss it. And he's right. If you do that, I get the nice red box around it, and I know that is a question, and it's not part of the chit chat in general. Another way you can do that to really get my attention is to hit the super chat button and send me $1 or $2. you can certainly do that. And of course, there's stickers as well. There's all sorts of fun stuff there now. So you can do that as well, whichever way you want to do it. Kyle, as I said, is here. Who else do we have? We got Blades Music, who has been around for a few shows now, and I'm glad you're here. I hope you decide to become one of the regulars to my show. And of course, we have Tim Talks Audio. Tim is awesome. He has a great YouTube channel all of his own, and he does his own live streams, or at least he's just relatively recently started doing them regularly, which is cool. Tim's shows are great, so I definitely recommend, when I'm not doing my shows or Jonny Gibe is not doing his, go and check out Tim's, because Tim's shows are just as valuable and informative as ours are, if not more so. He has a lot to offer. And he's also a Personas fanboy like the rest of us. Let's see, who else do we have? Steels is here. That's not a name I'm familiar with, so I think you're new to my show, in which case, hello, I'm glad to have you here. Bobby Booth, no show is complete without Bobby Booth. Bobby Booth has been to almost every single live stream I have done. And I've been doing these for, nearly 3 years now. I think I started doing these every Sunday in 2017. And he was one of the first ones to come on board and encourage me to do them. So my Sunday Night Live is pretty much mostly Bobby's fault, really. But yeah, back in the day in 2017, those of you that have not been around my shows, the content was good, shall we say, but the quality of the audio and the picture was, let's just say, a lot less to be desired. It was pretty rough around the edges, because where I lived before we moved here into this house, we had terrible, terrible internet connection. But you guys who have been here through all of that put up with it, and you've been terrific supporters of mine, so thank you very much. Bobby in particular. Simon is here as well. He is raising his hand and waving at me. Simon Carpenter, hello, good to see you. Thank you for coming. Who else do we have? I think that's it. I think we've got to it. Steels is in the Czech Republic. Hello, good to see you. And I think you are my first person to watch my show from the Czech Republic. And it is nearly 11 minutes past 1 in the morning for you. You, sir, are crazy. As crazy as me. So, let's see. Do we have questions? We have a lot of talk, but do we have questions? Let's see. This is where my moderators are going to have to be extra specially vigilant and make sure I don't miss questions, please, guys. I would appreciate it. Let's see. You guys are talking about the 9000J from Plugin Alliance. Yeah, that does look super awesome, doesn't it? You know what? Plugin Alliance are amazing. They have lots of partnerships with lots of different manufacturers, some small manufacturers, some maybe medium-sized, and Dirk Ulrich, who runs Plugin Alliance, brings all of these companies together, and they make some of the best plugins on the planet, particularly Brainworks. I'm a big fan of Brainworks plugins. PLM says, my name's Alan. Alan, thank you. I'm so glad I can call you Alan. That's great. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. Steele says, I came here from the Personas Facebook page. Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the Personas Facebook page? If you're from the Studio One group, if you're from the Studio One Sessions group, or the Studio One Prime users group, if you're from any of those groups, or the Personas Studio One users group, any of those groups, very glad to have you here. That just means that my pretty poor attempts at advertising are working. I think Alan had the first question, I think. Is that Right, let me see. No, it's Dwayne who has the first question. And he asks, do you know of a way to tell what version of Studio One created a .song file? In the start page, where your list of recent files is, if you hover over one of those files, a little pop-up will appear, and it will show you what the path of that song is, so you know where it is located. But does it tell you what version of Studio One created that song? I don't think it does, but we can take a look. We can absolutely go and take a look, because I have Studio One open. I just need to do that. And I need to do that. Alright, so we're over in Studio One 5 land. Let's see. If I hover over this one, does it tell me what version? No, it doesn't. It does not tell you. Nope, it doesn't tell you. It tells me that this is a capture file. That it does tell me. Yeah, it's not going to tell me. I know that Flying Shoes was created in Studio One version 2, even though it says 3 weeks ago. I revisited this. This is one of my dad's songs. I've been working on his EP, and he wanted to resurrect an old song that he did 5 years ago. And so we resurrected it. And I know that this was done in Studio One version 2, and I brought it in Studio One version 5. And actually hardly needed to do a thing to it, but it doesn't actually tell you what the original source was, whether it was Studio One version 2. However, I do believe that if you right-click it and go Show in Explorer, does it tell you there? No, it does not. It only tells you when it was last modified. It doesn't tell you what the original source was. It just says Studio One song. So there you go. There is no way currently to tell what version of Studio One the song was made with. So, yeah, that is it. That's your answer to your question. There is no way of knowing. You just have to be careful about how you name your files when you're saving them, or when you're bringing them in from an older version into Studio One 5. You just have to be careful about how you do that. I think that was the first question. I could be wrong about that. Let's see. Was I right about that? Okay, I think that was the first question. In which case, that is very cool. Let's see. Okay, next one is from Alan over in Glasgow. How do you get in contact with people through Pressonosphere if you don't know anyone? That is a very, very, very good question. Because at the moment, all there is a collaboration area within Pressonosphere. And the idea is that your workspace is your workspace. And you can invite different people into different workspaces that you create, or they can invite you into that workspace. If they don't know you, it's a little bit tricky, because there's kind of no way to communicate outside of your workspaces within Pressonosphere at the moment. As it currently stands, that's kind of how it is. However, if you're on Facebook, there is a Facebook group for Pressonosphere. So you can go and join that group, and you can kind of reach out to people there. And if they're happy with direct messaging you in Facebook, their email address that they have used for Pressonosphere, then you can work together. You can exchange details, and then you can work together. You can create workspaces, and that's how it kind of would grow a little bit more organically. Additionally, within Pressonosphere itself, there are live streams that are happening pretty regularly. Joe has done a couple, Gregor has done a couple, and I'm sure that there are going to be other people eventually doing some of these live streams as well. Maybe some of our Presonus artists will do some as well. and there is always a chat facility within those live streams, so you should be able to kind of get to know people there as well. So that's another option. So yeah, so there is the Facebook group. If you're on Facebook, you can kind of go and reach out and meet and greet people there. I'm fairly confident that as Pressonosphere grows and develops, there will be all sorts of other ways in which you can contact other people who are in Pressonosphere. Pretty sure that we will do that. I can't say for certain because I don't actually know, but I'm fairly confident that that would be a logical thing that would get built into it. We're just going to have to wait and see, to be honest. I have really nothing further to do with kind of Pressonosphere. I did at the start, as we were getting it built and developed, and then starting it off, I was kind of all part of that. But I'm not really part of the kind of development side of it anymore. My bit has been done, but I am in the expert chat, by the way. So you know that little chat button that's in the Learn area of Pressonosphere, little blue thing at the bottom, what is it, right-hand corner? You click that, and you can kind of talk to people who are Studio One experts. And I'm not talking about the people who, the organization that call themselves Studio One Expert. I'm talking about a whole bunch of people from around the world who are power users of Studio One. Some of them are Presonus artists, some of them are, a small selection of them are Presonus employees, but the rest are well-established people like Jonny Geib. He is one of them, I'm one of them, and there are, as I say, a good few others. Some of them are our forum moderators as well, so yeah, you can kind of reach out to people there as well. All right, so I hope that kind of helps address that question. Lily's from the HST channel. Yes, I'm glad you're over here too. What compressor settings do you find are the best to use for piano solos? That is a great question. And actually it depends on the context for the piano piece itself. If it's a piano if it's literally just a solo piano piece, then I don't tend to use a whole lot of compression, to be honest. Because the dynamic range of the piano on its own is pretty big. You know, just by virtue of the reason why it's called a pianoforte. It means quiet, loud. But we shorten that to piano because, I mean, who really wants to say pianoforte all the time? But that's what it was originally called. It was originally called the pianoforte, meaning keyboard instrument that can play really, really quiet, but also can play pretty darn loud. Hey, we need to shorten this into something that is easily rememberable. So that's what they did. They called it the pianoforte, and then over time we've kind of shortened it again to piano. But yeah, because the dynamic range of the piano is so wide, when I'm recording a solo piano piece, I don't tend to do a whole lot. I would use something that is smooth and transparent, so maybe something like an LA2A style compressor. So in Studio One, you could use the fat channel and use what do they call it? They call it I forget what it's called in the fat channel. I think it's called a tube compressor. I think. But yeah, you can use that one. Or any kind of optical compressor that's going to be nice and smooth and transparent would do the job. And even then, I'm only talking about dealing with the very loudest peaks, to be honest. Just to tame them just a little bit. Just to kind of tuck it in just a little bit. I'm not wanting to kind of destroy the dynamic range of the piano in the context of it's just a solo piano piece. However, the compression settings I would use if it's a piano solo in the context of a small band piece or in the context of an orchestral work, that might be different. Because in the context of an orchestra, you want to narrow that dynamic range a little bit so that the quiet parts of the piano and the very loud parts of the piano kind of fairly even in dynamics. You know, they're kind of evenly loud with each other, without kind of sounding awkward or sounding wrong. So, you know, if it's in the context of a jazz piece, then I would tend to use maybe a little more automation than I would otherwise, to be honest. So there, I hope that kind of answers that question. Right mouse click shows more files, but not version. Yes, that's right. Bobby Booth says, I got started watching Joe Gilder until I saw one of Jonny Guy videos and then been with him ever since. Of course, found Jonny Lipsham on the way and been here ever since. Yes, you have, my friend. And we're talking probably, I don't know. I started making videos in 2014, so that's like 6 years, man. I'm also a member of Mixing Made Easy with Dave. Yes. Tony's here. Hello, Tony. Good to see you, buddy. Welcome. He says, sorry I'm late. You've been making music. You know what? That's the best excuse to be late, or best excuse to not be here at all. If you're having fun making music, carry on having fun making music. That's the most important thing. Blaze Music says, if you're a part of Persona Sphere, check out the videos they are providing. They're very useful so far. Yeah, Joe and Gregor are making some outstanding masterclass content for the members over at sphere.personas.com. They are really, really good. And I mean really, really good. And well worth diving into. I mean, $15 a month, you get every piece of software that Personas makes, and you get the collaborative tools, and you get all of these great in-depth masterclasses, and you get access to Personas artists, and you get anything that we add to the software library. I mean, $15 a month? Are you kidding? Yeah, I personally think it's crazy. Let's see. Mika's here as well. He says, hello all. Hope everyone is well this evening. Yeah, I'm doing good. Been a quiet day here in the Lipsham house. Steele says, struggling with making psychic drums. Okay. Don't know enough about that kind of genre to be able to help you there. Still says, is Linux compatibility and consideration for Studio One at some point? Don't know. And even if I did know, I couldn't tell you. But yeah, I do not know. Oh, you can't see me. Thank you. I forgot to transition back. Thanks for that. Mika says, here's another very effective free channel straight from Analog Obsessions. Cool. Let's see. Been putting very little compression on my piano. Experiment later with the tube compressor. Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea, Lily. Let's see. Any other questions? Mika's asking, may I ask what piano you're looking to compress? Great question. Great question. Like I say, I don't tend to use very much compression when it comes to solo pianos. Of course, it kind of depends upon the music being played on the piano. I mean, if it's like prepared piano, you know, kind of like contemporary, weird, prepared piano where you have like golf balls and stuff being thrown at the strings, I think I would use some compression there, for sure. Or if it's Rachmaninoff, or if it's Tchaikovsky, yes, I probably would use a little more than I would if it was a Mozart minuet or something like that. A Mozart minuet, or even actually a Mozart piano concerto, I'm probably not going to use a whole lot of compression. Because the dynamic range of classical music from that particular period was not very big. From Beethoven and beyond really is where the dynamic range of the instrument really gets explored by composers. But, you know, kind of like Handel, Mozart, you know, kind of, if we're talking keyboard music broadly, then, you know, Bach, Handel, Mozart, the dynamic range of their music is actually quite narrow. So really, I don't see terribly the point of using a lot of compression. Just a little bit of taming compression, because there's nothing much to do really. The dynamic range is not very big, but you know, as soon as Beethoven lost his hearing, after that, his music, the dynamic range of his music, started to become much wider, and I don't think that's necessarily entirely because he had lost his hearing, although I would say that that's part of it, but I don't think it's the sum of the whole. I think he just wanted to kind of explore a wider dynamic range, and of course that had a massive influence on a whole lot of other composers who kind of, you know, as we go into the Romantic period, that's what the Romantic period was all about. It was all about exploring emotion in music. And of course, to explore the full range of the human emotional experience within music, you have to have big orchestras, and you have to have a lot of musicians, and you have to have a big dynamic range. Because that is the range of human emotion. We go from screaming to, weeping so deeply that no sound is coming out. That's kind of the breadth of our emotional experience, and therefore that's the dynamic range of the human experience. So that's kind of where my thinking is in terms of compression and solo piano, or any solo orchestral instrument in that context. Try the 670 compressor. Yeah, you can certainly try that. Absolutely. Steele says, make separate sphere plans and I will consider getting it. I have rent-to-own license of Studio One and I don't need any of the extra stuff. I think it would work for more people that way. Now it doesn't make sense to me. Well, you never know. As I say, you know, we are only in version 1.0 of Persona Sphere. Who knows how it's going to expand and how it's going to develop. One thing we do know is that we listen to the membership. If you go over to answers.personas.com, there is a separate thread entirely there for feature requests for Persona Sphere. So if you are a member, or if you are thinking about becoming a member and you think, hey, this is actually a stumbling block to me becoming a member, then I would recommend you go over there and put in a feature request and say, hey, this is actually a hindrance to me becoming a member. And if there are a lot of votes up for that particular issue, then more than likely it would get dealt with in some way or another. That's kind of how we roll, to be honest. Mika says, Lily and all, one huge mistake is overuse of compressors and limiters. Absolutely. As one gains experience and better gear, our recognition of dynamics becomes of more value. Dynamics are good. Yes, absolutely. Dynamics are extremely good and extremely powerful and valuable to music. Music should have dynamic range. It really should. Now, obviously, there are some genres that have a much smaller dynamic range, like industrial music, for example, or speed, death, thrash metal. And subgenres within that will have a much narrower dynamic range, probably from extremely loud to ear-bleedingly loud. And that's probably about it. Now, I'm obviously generalizing. But yes, music should have dynamics. And actually, some of the best songs ever written have a broad range of dynamics. Like Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen is an extraordinary song, and it has a wide dynamic range. It goes from pretty quiet to pretty darn heavy and loud. And so music, that's what makes music interesting to the listener and not fatiguing on the ear. That's the other thing. If all you ever have is extremely loud, the ear gets very tired very quickly and you switch off. You disengage from the music. You become a lot less interested very quickly. So yeah, dynamics are good. And I think whenever you're using compression, your goals, I think, personally for me, your compression should be to preserve as much of the dynamic range as you possibly can, whilst actually kind of controlling it and making sure that everything fits right in the mix. But that's just my opinion. Still says just a suggestion. Yeah, absolutely. Smash all the things. Yeah, let's compress the crap out of everything. Jeffrey Burr has a great question. Jeffrey, you didn't type out Jonny Lipsham Studios, but that's okay. I spied this one, so we're good with this one. But next time, please just kind of type that first and then type your question. And that makes sure that I don't miss your question. But he says, can I have Sphere on 2 computers? Yes, you can. You have the same kind of activations rules as you do for Studio One and for Notion. So for Studio One, you get 5 activations of your Studio One license, and therefore you also get the same number of activations for Persona Sphere. I have it on my Mac over there, and I have it on my PC over here. But because it's essentially browser-based to some degree, because it is a website, I have access to it on my phone and my iPad. I have 2 iPads now. Ridiculous, isn't it? Considering I think I said maybe like 9-10 months ago that I was not really into Apple products and didn't really foresee that I would ever have any Apple products. I now have an iMac and 2 iPads. I'm already foreseeing that at Christmas some crazy idiot is going to buy me an Apple Watch and maybe an iPhone, just to kind of make sure that I have the whole gamut of Apple products. But yeah, yes, you can have Persona Sphere on more than one device. Still says I use headphones for mixing. I do sometimes, because my room is not perfect. Even though I do have some acoustic treatment up in here, this is a rented property, so we can't really do too terribly much. I've had to be quite creative about how I put up the acoustic treatment, and I had to ask the landlord's permission. Fortunately, our landlords are great, and we know them very well. They are friends of ours, and their kids go to the same school as our kids, so, and they get on really well. So it was easier, but you know, I can't actually affix things to the walls. I'm basically hanging things up with pins at the moment. And they were happy for me to do that. But yeah, this room is not perfect. So because of that, I have to use a combination of my speakers and my headphones and some earbuds as well to help me make sure that I have everything balanced properly in my mix. So I use these guys. These are the Presonus HG7s. I'm also using Presonus RAC5s. And I have various earbuds as well. Wow, itchy nose. Yeah, I have Apple earbuds, and I have the ones that came with my Samsung Galaxy phone as well. So yeah. So I have to use all of those kind of as part of my, what I call my quality control chain, that makes sure that I have the low end nice, controlled, tight, and nicely balanced with the whole rest, you know, the rest of the frequency spectrum. And I make sure that the low mids are under control, because in a room like this, kind of that, you know, that 400 to 520 range can get a little bit big. And the low end can get a little bit big as well. And that's even with bass trapping, by the way, in this room. So yeah, nothing wrong with using headphones and monitor speakers to kind of help you compensate for what your room is giving you. because nobody's environment, unless they actually have a purpose-built, acoustically designed and built room, your room's not going to be perfect. So there. Bobby says, usually I compress by turning up the threshold to where it is just barely showing on the meter. Yeah, that's a good starting point for sure. Sometimes you have to go a little bit more, sometimes you have to go a little bit less, depending upon the material, but that is a great way to start. You're probably going to need to stack kicks. This is one of the de facto methods these days. Yep, yeah, good advice there. Tim says, can you go over how to use workspaces within Persona Sphere a bit more? Am I able to have people contact me via Sphere to work together? Kind of addressed that a little bit earlier, but once you've created a workspace, and I'm gonna, whilst I'm talking to you, I'm actually gonna go back and open mine so that you guys can see it. Open new tab. And I'll kind of show you kind of how it works, because I have 2 workspaces of my own, plus I am a member of several others at the moment, people that I'm working with. So let's go over here. All right, so here we are in Persona Sphere, and these are my 2 workspaces. This is my main kind of one at the moment. I call that my Cerebral Jazz Club. I have this one called Brand New Day, which is a song I'm working on with a few other people. And then these are all my other ones that I have been invited to. And it even tells you, look, who you're invited by. I was invited by Michael Johnson here to the lab, and my good friend and colleague over at Personas, Lawrence, invited me to be involved in this collaboration with him. I'm doing some keyboard parts and some vocals for him on that one, and there's Jonny's there, and there's a test one there. But yeah, let's go and take a look at this one here, and you can see how this one works. And so when you have members, when you have people that you've invited to collaborate and they accept their invitation, once they're in, they will appear here in your collaborators section. And as you can see, they'll show whether they're online or offline, or whether they're waiting, like Joe Gilder has not responded yet, even though I want his acoustic guitar on a particular track that I'm working on right now. And I would like him to do some backing vocals, but he hasn't got back to me yet. So yeah, so everyone appears over here, and even their permissions, and you can change their permissions. You can decide what level of ability to change content that goes in this workspace is. So this is your timeline, and this is where you can kind of talk to each other, and you can see there's like all sorts of conversation going back and forth here between different people, which is great. And then you've got a shared file section. So anything that has been uploaded here, and you can upload by clicking this blue button here, it gets added to this workspace, and then people can download it. So for example, I can go to a Studio One song, and I can export the stems and have them brought into this particular workspace, and I can do all of that from inside Studio One. Don't have to leave Studio One, and you know, I can quite easily come back in here, and they will appear here. And then all that needs to happen is the person who is going to be working on that next can download by pressing on this download button for each one. At the moment, there's no kind of batch downloading. Like if you've got like a bunch of stems here, let's say all of these were stems. At the moment, you have to click one at a time. You can't kind of queue them, so to speak, yet. I'm sure that that is something will be worked on. So yeah, that's kind of how you do it at the moment, and you can edit some of these files as well. Oh, hang on. I have to be corrected here. There is a batch download button. They must have just added that like this week and I never noticed. There you go. So I am corrected. If I had a bunch of stems here, I could hit this batch download button and would be able to download them all at once. Hooray! I had not noticed that. Why had I never noticed that? They must have literally added that this week. I'll have to get onto the chat with the IT guys this week and have a joke about the fact that I did not see this batch download button. So yeah, so there you go. This is kind of how that works. Now, currently, as I said, there is no way to be able to reach out to other members of PresonaSphere outside of your workspaces that you either have yourself or that you're already a member of over here. So I'm a member of all of these. I can contact and write comments on whomever I'm a member of here. Like, see here, I know that something has been added to this padded cell one because it's got a red button telling me there's something waiting for me, which I'm not going to show you for a very important reason, which I can't really go into. I can't really show you this one. But yes, when somebody adds something to one of your collaborations, you'll have a little number here appear. But as it is at the moment, you can't kind of just reach out to somebody on PresonaSphere and say, hey, come and collaborate with me. As I said, there is the Facebook group, PresonaSphere Facebook group, and you can kind of say, hey, who would like to collab, who would be up for playing bass on this particular song that I'm working on? If you are, direct message me with your email address and I'll add you to my workspace. You can do that over at the PresonaSphere group over on Facebook right now. But that's as good as it gets at the moment. So hope that helps. Is i5 Gen works fine. Okay, you're talking computers. Mika says, sometimes multiple compressors in series are helpful. One to catch the top peaks and another for... yes, absolutely. Serial compression. And I'm not talking about taking a bowl of cornflakes and mashing it with a potato masher or something like that. Serial compression, where you stack several compressors, can be really, really helpful. Especially with something like vocals, for example, in maybe a pop or a rock song, to have, 2 or 3 compressors working together in series can mean you don't have just one compressor doing all of the heavy lifting, all of the work with that vocal. And you maybe have, a couple of compressors doing 3 dB or so of compression each at different attack and release times to serve different purposes. Like Mika says, you have one that's going to catch the very loudest peaks, and then the other one is going to be maybe a bit slower, more smooth, more kind of a buttery kind of compressor that's going to kind of catch the rest of it and just tame it all nice together. That is definitely a great little tip. Let's see, Marcos Gomez is here. Hello, mate. Good to see you. Do you have a Discord or Telegram group? I don't. I am on Discord, but I don't actually have a group or anything like that. I don't have a Discord server set up yet. Really, to be honest, I haven't had the time to sort it out yet. I joined Discord because there is a Studio One Discord server, and I joined it basically to kind of help out and make sure that everything stays, kind of nice and well managed over there. But yeah, I don't have mine actually set up yet. Mika says, JG in Cerebral Jazz Club. JG is into jazz. Well, he kind of is. He has his jazz records that he likes. I have mine that I like. But yeah, I actually invited him into mine in the early days of PresonaSphere, basically to kind of help test how easy it is to add somebody. So yeah, so that's why he's in there. And he's just still in there. It's great. I'm glad he's in my workspace. 911 a day says, I signed up for that to get access to XT Presence keyboards, Fender Rhodes Mark 1. Where can you find all of the extra instruments? I'll show you that as well. Let me go over to here. I'm going to have to be, actually, let me go back for a second. So I need to be careful about how I do this. Okay. Alrighty, so here are all your add-ons. If you go to products and then add-ons, all of these appear. And this is pretty much everything that Presonus makes. So if you compare this to the shop over at Presonus, so shop.presonus.com, if you compare this, there are things over in the shop that are third party that you will not see in Presonus Sphere. Just so you know. So yeah, you get all of these at the moment. These are kind of brand new that have been added in the last couple of months. Deep Flight 1 was the first one that we added, and then Street Conductor, and then Speaker Freaker. And these have been added. These are available in the shop, but they cost quite a bit of extra money. However, if you're a member of Presonus Sphere, you get these deposited in your account at no extra cost. So there's a whole bunch of acoustic guitars here. There's the whole Spark set, which are amazing, by the way. Let's see. And then you've got the Tom Brecklin drums. Tom Brecklin is a terrific session drummer. He's played with people like Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea, and George Whitty, and people like that. So he's well known in the kind of jazz and fusion world, but he's played on a lot of mainstream records as well. You also get the Presonus Symphonic Orchestra, and then right here, Presence XT Presonus Studio Grand is awesome. By the way, I have that. It's fantastic. And then you've got all of these other stuff here. There's a few other pianos as well. So yeah, so you get all of those added as well. The XT Presence keyboards that I think you're referring to, I believe if you have Studio One Professional, you should already have those. You should already have those as part of your sound sets that come with Studio One Professional. So yeah, you should already have those. If you don't have those, and I think actually the Presence XT keyboards, I think, are available to Presonus Studio One Artist as well, I think. He says, I have the artist version, referring to Presonus Sphere. Yeah, Presonus Sphere comes with Studio One 5 Professional, so the XT keyboards should be already there. So yeah, you should already be able to get that. Yeah, if you are a member of Presonus Sphere, what you need to do is you need to go over to software and you need to download this guy over here, Studio One 5 Professional. And then you just activate it with Presonus Sphere and you're good to go. And all of these add-ons will be available to you. You won't get these beta versions, but you'll certainly get all of this stuff here. So yeah, I hope that helps you. But thank you very much for the $5 donation. I appreciate it. That's very kind. Okay, let's go back over to here. We've got about 10 minutes left, guys. So if you've got any other questions, then I'd be happy to answer those. But no, you did not hijack my chat. This is a Q&A show. This is all about your questions. And you asked a great question about how you find the add-ons for Studio One in Presonus Sphere. So as I say, just to kind of reiterate, make it clear, if you already have something like Studio One Artist that you bought before Presonus Sphere was a thing that you wanted to get involved in, then you will always have that, by the way. Even if you end your membership of Persona Sphere, you will always have your artist version of Studio One, because that predates your membership. So you will always have that. Here's the thing, though. When you become a member of Persona Sphere, you get Studio One 5 Professional. And you can activate with Persona Sphere, and all of the add-ons. Smack the mic out of the way, why don't you? All of the add-ons that we were just looking at, when you download them, they will install almost automatically into Studio One. But if you have not activated your Studio One license with Persona Sphere, when you try to download anything from Persona Sphere, it will say, hey, you don't own this. There'll be a little dialog box that comes up saying that pretty much says, hey, you don't own this, or something to that effect. So what you need to do then is just go back to Studio One activation, and activate with Persona Sphere. Hit the activate button. It will activate with Persona Sphere, and then you just restart Studio One. Yeah, close it, restart it, and then you come back to Persona Sphere and you download and install whatever it is you want to grab. Can I recommend an upright bass plugin? That's a good question, because there are some really, really good bass plugins out there. Easy Bass is very good for electric bass. I don't think it does upright bass, but it's pretty good for electric bass. The upright bass that's in Presence XT at the moment is not bad. For a stock upright bass, it's actually not terribly bad. It's actually fairly good. And in the context of a big band piece or an orchestral piece, it will stand on its own 2 feet, and it will sound pretty good. In the context of a piece, on its own as a solo instrument, it sounds a bit plastic, to be honest. But as I say, in context with other things, it sounds pretty good. But do I recommend one? I think there certainly used to be a few years ago a bass sound called was it Trilogy or Trillion? I can't quite remember which it was called. But they had electric bass and upright bass, fully physical modeled instruments. And they were the best. I used those in Cubase all the time. Never got them to work in Studio One, so I got rid of them about 6 years ago. But they worked great in Cubase. I think they were kind of only ever really tested on Cubase and Nuendo, I think. But, and never tested with Studio One, which is why they didn't work. But if you can find something similar in quality and standard to those, then you're in good shape. The Halion, I think, that Steinberg make, which I think is primarily designed for Cubase, might work in Studio One. Native Instruments, another good option. So yeah, I hope that helps. Kerry is here. Hello, Kerry. Good to see you. Welcome. Kerry says, do you have any recommendations for a basic 4 to 6 input analog mixer to use with Studio One 5? That's a great question. Presonus does make some small footprint mixers called the AR mixers. Now, the thing with those mixers is they will work as interfaces. Kind of multiple channel interfaces with faders fundamentally. But the thing that you won't be able to do is you won't be able to control the faders inside Studio One with the faders on the mixer. Doesn't quite work like that. The only mixers that would do that is the Fader Port 8, the Fader Port 16, or the Studio Live mixers when they are in DAW mode, like mine one is right now. But yes, the AR, I think the AR8, I think may now actually be discontinued. but you may well still be able to get your hands on it. It's just a discontinued product. It won't be sold, or rather, once stock is gone, it's gone. It's not going to be built anymore. And I would imagine that support for it has maybe got another sort of 12 to 18 months to go. But yes, the AR8 is actually really nice. There is an AR12 as well, if you fancy having, a few more inputs available to you. But yeah, and there are other manufacturers. It's just I kind of talk about Presonus because I work for them. But yeah, there are other manufacturers that make other mixers that you could certainly do a little bit of exploration online for. But yeah, just bear in mind that they won't necessarily work as controllers of the DAW. Okay? But I hope that helps. Trillion, that's what it was called. Trillion, thank you very much. Trillion is the total solution for bass from Spectrasonics. It's awesome. It really is. Certainly back in the day when I used it in Cubase, it was epic. And I really loved it. For whatever reason, back in my early days of Studio One, I could never get it to work in Studio One. If anybody has got it successfully to work in Studio One 5, let me know. Let's see. Michael says, glad to see you here, JL, as a musical prodigy. I don't know about the prodigy bit, but I am certainly musical. But thank you for that. That's very kind. He says, I figured out that someone nearby has a ham radio base station with linear amp, which is illegal. And when they transmit, all the inputs on my 192 catch it, so static and loud. Oh, gosh. Yeah. You know what? That might actually be more to do with cabling than it is to do with the actual inputs on the 192. Because the inputs on the 192 should be shielded from such things. And Mike is quite correct. Call the FCC. Absolutely. And yes, they are illegal to own and they are illegal to operate. But good catch, trying to find, trying to locate where all that's coming from. That's a good catch. I had a guitar amp a few years back, and it would pick up the radio messages of taxi cabs going from, the cabs to their control center and back again. So it was great. I knew exactly when my cab was coming at the end of the night because I would hear the radio transmissions through my guitar amp. It was great. Not always what you want when you're, when you're trying to practice guitar or you're trying to record a guitar track or whilst you're playing, you can hear, this radio chatter going on. But yeah, the FCC should be able to find them. Absolutely. They can triangulate. That's exactly what they will do. They have equipment whereby they can triangulate, I think, probably to within the nearest meter or two. So they should be able to find that radio base wherever they are and take them out of action, I would think. And then your 192 should be restored to normal function. All right, so we are out of time. I will take one more question. So be typing quickly. And the first question I read will be the one that I read. Otherwise, we'll wrap up the show. I'm going to take another mouthful of tea whilst you guys are doing that. Lily, I'm sorry to hear that. But that's funny, though. Mariachi music. You know what? If it was loud and was being picked up by your show, I would have been tempted just to jam, just to kind of play along. Figure out what key they're playing in. And I would have just gone along with it. Tell you one thing you can do It's maybe not very neighborly to do this, but I have done it. Because we have neighbors just out there who, if the weather is nice, they like to take their boombox out into the garden and play 80s cheese, basically. The cheesiest 80s music that you can find. I'm sure they've got a compilation CD that is just like pure 80s cheddar, if such a CD compilation exists. If it doesn't, it darn well should. Pete Waterman probably should make it. He would make himself another fortune if he did. And so, how do I fight that? I'll show you how I fight that. Hang on. I fight it with this. This is Miles Davis live at the Fillmore East in 1970 when he was opening for Neil Young and Crazy Horse. And they played pretty much all the tunes from the Bitches Brew record, which had just been released like a few months earlier. Yeah, so they were opening for Neil Young and Crazy Horse and Steve Miller, the Steve Miller Blues Band. And so the audience kind of, they were there for the rock music, man. They weren't expecting, a jazz group to be playing. But they had no idea what they were about to get hit with. That they were about to get hit with the very first kind of the birth of fusion music. So you have Miles Davis, and then you have Wayne Shorter on sax, and you have Chick Corea on Fender Rhodes and he has the Fender Rhodes going through a distortion pedal and a ring modulator. And then you have Dave Holland on electric bass. And the drummer is Jack DeJohnette with Airto Moreira on percussion. And it's pretty epic. And I just basically crank this up as loud as I can. And they soon turn off the 80s cheddar. So yeah, there's one way to do that. Let's see, Mike Johnson is here. Hey, Michael, good to see you. He says, will you help me with tutorial videos? No, I won't. No, I'm kidding. Yes, I will try and help you get set up for making tutorial videos. It's actually a lot easier than you think. You just need to have the right software and the right hardware to make it work. It really isn't hard to set up. I mean, I actually owe Jonny Gibe a huge debt of gratitude, because without him, I would not have even got started making videos. There are two ways to do it on a Windows PC. Method number one is the old way that I used to do it. And that is, you take the outputs of your interface and you run it into the inputs of a second interface. The second interface will be running in class compliant mode, so basically as a WMD device. No, WDM device. And your main interface will be running this whole Studio One side of things. So your main interface will be set, it's set up in Studio One and you don't touch it. Your second interface is what goes, the audio goes into that, and your screen capture software receives that audio. So that's method number one, the two interface method. And it worked very well for me for about 5 years. That was until I got the PreSonus Studio 1824, which has loopback capability built into it. Now what that means is I can set that up in Universal Control in a virtual mode. And that basically means it takes a virtual copy of my outputs and brings it back in to the WDM inputs of the interface. So effectively, it turns the interface into two interfaces inside one. effectively, but it does it kind of inside the device. And then what that means is I can do what I'm doing now with, hang on, with a Studio One song. Let me get my Studio One song up, hang on. So I can do a Studio One song, and I can talk over it at the same time. Now, normally when people try and set up for screen capturing for either a live stream or doing videos, the issue they have is that their voice gets recorded perfectly, but their audio in Studio One is like this. There is no audio from Studio One. And that's because Windows and ASIO, basically what ASIO does is ASIO takes control of the entire interface, and that means that no audio can get through from Studio One. So your screen capture software only ever records the front two inputs of your interface. It doesn't record anything else. And that's a limitation of Windows. It's just the way they designed Windows and how Windows works with ASIO. And so the thing with Loopback Mode is Loopback Mode means that I am taking effectively the outputs virtually from the outputs and into a separate set of inputs in the interface. And it's that second set of inputs that my capture software is listening to. And that's just the way it works. And that's why you get this. So you can hear Studio One and you can hear me at the same time. And so Loopback does that. The 192 is the only, I believe, the only member of the Studio USB interface family that does not have Loopback Mode. And that is because it was pretty much the first of those devices that we made. The original silver set of interfaces that are discontinued now, they also do not have Loopback. It is only the newer Studio Series interfaces that have Loopback. The Series 3 mixers have Loopback. The 16, the 24, the 32, and all of the SC and SX series interfaces, they have Loopback, but the other ones don't. It is just the way it is, I'm afraid. So if you have the Studio 192, you're going to have to go, and you're on Windows, there are a couple of options available to you. One is to do the two interface method that I talked about to start with, or the other method, which is to get a piece of software that will do the whole virtual thing for you. So something like Voicemeeter or Audio Hijack. Those are a couple of very, very good options that you could use. I don't use those, and I didn't before when I could have. I didn't use those. I used the two interface method. The reason why is because I didn't want another piece of software using up my RAM. You know what I mean? I wanted literally to have Studio One and my screen capture software as the only things that were running when I'm making videos. So, so that I had plenty of processing power available for making the video. But I'm sure that things like, wow, my nose was really itchy. I'm pretty sure that Voicemeeter has improved a lot and probably doesn't really do very much in terms of loading up your RAM as it used to. Let's see. Yeah, 4:45 a.m. does come pretty quick. Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, with that, I'm going to say a big thank you to everybody for coming. And I will see you all on Wednesday over on the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel for Songwriting Simplified. Don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but I'm pretty sure we'll have some great subjects for you. So if you're into songwriting and arranging and composing, those kind of things, then get yourself over there, 6 p.m. Central Time, Wednesday on the Home Studio Trainer YouTube channel. And until then, I will see you then. Good night.